Good morning or good afternoon, whatever time you guys are listening to this. Welcome back to another edition of the Layman's AI podcast. I am Adam,
And my name is Brian.
and tonight we are here for episode 42. And Brian and we kicked around quite a bit of possible topics, but we landed on we need to do some news updates. Basically, there's been a lot going on. I'm sure you've heard some of this in your nightly news, possibly in your newspapers, if that's still a thing for you.
hmm
Hopefully it is. I do miss picking up a newspaper every now and then. But there's some news stories going on, some things you may know already, and some things you may not know already that are kind of exciting for the layman. Brian, what do you think is the big news story right now in AI?
Oh, well, I don't think there's really a close second. Anthropic is suing the U.S. government over being blacklisted as a
Yes.
supply chain risk. Yeah, in case you haven't noticed or haven't or you've been kind of living under a rock in the AI world a little bit, Anthropic laid down the line as to what they're where they wanted to cross over, as far as how their models are going to be used by the U.S. military.
Right.
Basically, the two things I've read, number one, they don't want it to be used for mass surveillance. And two, they don't want it to be used to fire weapons without a human intervention. So
Correct.
basically, autonomous weapons and everything. And the U.S. Department of Defense or Department of War, whatever you want to call it now, decided to cut them out and basically is trying to blacklist them as a supply chain risk. Personally, I think that's a little too far, in
Uh,
my opinion.
yeah, for those of you who don't know, when you get blacklisted, I had to look this up myself. I didn't know this off the top of my head. But when you get blacklisted, that means companies have to either explain why they are doing work with you or could possibly be fined for doing work with you.
hmm
And that would impact heavily Amazon. And I think there was another one if Anthropic gets blacklisted, which I believe they have been. That's why they're suing to get off that list. I think I have that right. Um,
Yeah.
supply chain risk, excuse me. Um, it, it's a I got to be honest, Brian. I don't want to talk politics. Like we've always done a good job of not doing that.
hmm
And though I lean one direction, I got to admit the capitalist in me says this isn't right. The government does not tell companies what to do.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm kind of like, it makes me uncomfortable. It's like, do as we
yeah,
say, or we're gonna punish you.
yeah. That's
Which
not
that,
how
no,
capitalism's supposed to work. It's just
yeah,
not. Uh, and I don't like that. Um, and I guess my concern with this whole thing was how it started with they wanted Anthropic, and I know we're going to get called fanboys because you and I like
hmm
Anthropic
yeah,
and Claude, but it, that was their first choice. So the government did the vetting process and wanted Anthropic as their first choice.
hmm
Anthropic wasn't willing to give up their principles, I guess,
yeah,
and I admire that. I do.
hmm
I know where they stand.
yeah,
And because they didn't do that, the government appears to be, maybe there's more to the story we don't know, but they appear to be a little vengeful right now and are going this route. But then immediately went to OpenAI and ChatGPT and are like, hey, we're going to do a deal with you right now. And that deal was done in like 48 hours, it seemed. Uh,
yeah. And
like, wait,
one
we
of the
settled for the second best option that you could think of.
hmm
A little scary.
hmm
Yeah, just,
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that was one of the lead architects of OpenAI actually resigned in protest. And we're talking like one of the top um engineers that they have there, which tells you that, you're going to have a talent deficiency.
yeah.
And if you have some of the top talent resigning in protest over this, you're going to say, okay, who's up? And they're not going to be as good, obviously. I mean, you're not going to, ask, your high school senior valedictorian to replace Einstein necessarily. So it's kind of, uh, yeah, it's kind of scary. As far as like how far this is going, and especially the blacklisting part, it is very restrictive and everything. And yeah, and the most recent one, okay, yeah, was the head of robotics and consumer hardware, resigned in protest.
Okay.
And um, yeah, I mean that's a big deal position to resign
Hmm.
over that and everything. And this is going to be interesting going forward as to how
Yeah,
much the government's going to try stronger on these companies.
I think we're going to get some first time court decisions that are going to have an impact. I think we're going to get some AI precedent in the law here. I
Hmm.
mean, courts are going to be determining how AI can legally be used in warfare and surveillance at this point. And for the layman, obviously, warfare's, it's important. It affects all of us.
Hmm.
Surveillance affects us even more.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a pessimist. You can't tell me they're not watching us already.
Hmm.
But with
Well,
that being
yeah.
said, what if they rule that they can watch you through your interactions with AI?
Yeah, I mean that's going to be yeah, I mean you're analyzing who you are as a person.
Mhm.
When you're like over surveilling with AI because they're going to start analyzing um who you're talking to, what you're doing on social media,
Hmm.
who your email contacts are, and
Yeah,
everything. And they're like you have the potential to get profiled and everything.
absolutely.
And if you're over profiled by the government, depending on which political leaning you stand on, if you're on
Yep.
the opposite of who's in charge, you're in a dangerous spot right there.
Correct. And I think that's the big point you brought up, Brian. This is something both sides have can
Hmm.
be easily guilty of. It's like
Oh yeah,
gerrymandering. They both parties do it all the time, and yet
yeah,
nobody stops it. Like it drives me nuts. And that
yeah.
that could be happening here with the AI surveillance. I hope it doesn't get to that point. But there
Hmm.
there is a type of surveillance that is good in case like they've caught pedophiles,
Hmm.
they've caught people recreating inappropriate images and things like that, people setting up mass plans to do bad things. So there
Yeah.
has been some good surveillance built into AI tools already. I would
Hmm.
never want us to get rid of that. I just think
Yeah,
that'd be a big
definitely.
mistake.
Yeah,
But to what point are they gonna? How much surveillance are they going to do if it even gets legal to do that?
yeah, that's the thing. And the whole thing was mass surveillance. They didn't
Correct.
want. And like if you're doing some sort of targeting surveillance where it starts to pick up those things like, mass destruction, terrorism, pedophilia, sex trafficking, everything like that.
Right.
If you have a model that's set to pick up those patterns, I don't think any political spectrum is going to have an issue with, something like that. But if you over profile is the problem I think that Anthropic was having an issue with, and what a lot of other AI engineers are having an issue with as well. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this goes forward, essentially. And right now, if your a political leanings is who's in charge right now, and it says, oh, okay, that's they're not going to come after me. It's like, well, once the
Yeah.
needle flips the other way,
Hmm.
now they can't come after you. So you
Yeah.
have to keep it right in the middle. And I think what really needs to be done is Congress needs to step up and decide what's too far. And they need to write actual frame laws to use as a framework of what the government can use AI for.
And the current state that we're in, though, right now, Congress isn't doing that. It's going to be left to the judicial system. And for those of you who don't know the American judicial system, uh, basically you can have an appeals process. So whatever's decided at the local level can make its way up to the federal courts. And at
Hmm.
that point, most of those judges, or pretty much all those judges, are appointed, and they tend to lean towards the political party of which they were appointed. There's times the Supreme Court has broken away from the political affiliations. So if it
Yeah.
does get to that level, though, that would probably lean towards the current administration, just given who's currently on the Supreme Court. However, the current Supreme Court has gone against the right side. So I don't want to turn this into a
Mm.
history lesson or anything. This is an
Yeah.
AI podcast, but this is definitely something we're going to be watching for the rest of 2026 because there's going to be precedent set in terms of laws, AI, surveillance, things like that.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what's going forward. And this is the first, I think, major confrontation
Yeah.
as to, morality of your company,
Hmm.
as to what you're willing to do and everything. But ultimately, it's going to take Congress and everything. But, whether or not you agree AI should be used for those things, to me is kind of secondary to going as far as blacklisting a company over it.
Right.
That right there, I don't think anyone should really feel comfortable just for a company that stands its moral ground and everything.
Hmm.
You want to cut off the contracts, you can cut off the contracts, what have you. But to
Absolutely.
actually blacklist a company and to go that far, I just kind of did a little search, like what happens when your supply chain risks, trade restrictions, financial and contractual fallout, operational gridlock, prohibition of federal funds, certification loss. You got banking hurdles and
Right.
everything,
Brian,
and
can
it's
you
just gonna be crazy.
I don't want to get this wrong because I read about the lawsuit, but
Yeah.
has Anthropic actually been blacklisted or have they been labeled a supply chain risk by the government, or is there only a threat of it at this point?
That
I
I,
feel like we owe it to our listeners to get that part right, and we owe it to the companies to make sure we have this facts right.
yeah.
Shame on me. I should have done a better job prepping on that one. I just thought of it as I was sitting here.
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at it right now. I just kind of did a little search at the moment. Officially in a high stakes legal regulatory battle. It's not on a trade blacklist. Has been designated as supply chain risk to national security, which
Okay.
that is still an issue in my opinion.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, definitely an issue.
So,
All right. So
but
I think we beat that one pretty good.
all right, yeah. So
Uh,
story
Next
number
story.
two.
Story number two, Anthropic.
Yeah, Anthropic once again, and if you don't know, we fanboy a little bit, but the AI jobs gap chart.
Yes,
This is an interesting one, and if you haven't seen this chart, just go ahead and look it up.
it's everywhere.
They released it.
If you were on LinkedIn the last probably 8 days, I have no doubt this came up in your feed at some point and somebody
Hmm.
commented on it or something like that. But they did a great job of it's a spider web chart. And if you take a look at it, it shows you in light blue the theoretical reach that AI has within each industry. And then
Hmm.
in red is the current impact that it has in each industry.
Yes.
And the theoretical in some of these is almost 100%.
Hmm.
But the red is nowhere near 100% in any of these, but it's clearly growing and impacting certain sectors of the business world that we have talked
Hmm.
about, and other sectors haven't even been touched yet. Um,
Yeah.
so this is kind of important to the layman's AI, to the layman's.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
if we take a look at this in the blue, we have the theory. Okay, so um, AI capabilities are highest in the following industries: management, business
Hmm.
and finance, computer
Yeah.
and math,
Yeah, if you want to put
legal.
that up on the screen real quick, just to
Oh
kind of
yeah.
show our listeners or our YouTube viewers, if you're tuning in on YouTube.
So if you're
So,
taking a look on YouTube, we have here the chart here. It's called theoretical capability and observed usage by occupational category.
hmm.
And that's the blue, that's the red that I'm talking about. Um, Brian, I interrupted you. You were going to say something.
Not in particular.
Okay.
But well, I'll have one thought on this. It's actually fairly the trends are fairly accurate as
Yes.
to what its theoretical is. It hasn't reached it obviously as of yet. I kind of have some disagreements on how much this will actually reach to. But if you look at sort of the observed AI coverage versus the theoretical, they're sort of I guess they're theorizing of what where AI is going to reach to is actually kind of along the same pattern of what they predict, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and it does appear to be a common sense thread at the moment. I mean,
Hmm.
we did know that we've seen an impact in the legal industry, and it shows us that's one of the higher industries it's having an impact in. It does say it's having an impact in education and library. I haven't felt that as much, but
Yeah.
it's out there. To me, what was very interesting to me is when they talk about theoretical AI coverage, there are some that
Hmm.
are so low. I'm talking the blue
Yeah.
part. If you're agriculture, construction,
Hmm.
installation and repair, production, transportation, that shocked me that they
Yeah.
have a low theoretical output for that.
Yeah.
Grounds maintenance,
Almost
serving
zero.
food, yeah, grounds maintenance is zero. Food and service is not much.
Hmm.
It kind of shows there are some safe industries right now, and
Yeah.
they're usually your workers, your blue
Yeah.
collar workers.
Yeah, definitely. The robotics side might have something to say about a lot of this,
Yeah.
especially with grounds
Hmm.
maintenance, I should say. But yeah, like agriculture, they have a really low one, but I've seen a lot of robotics that use AI.
Yes.
Like you ever see those weed killing robots that kind of ride along the farms and the gardens and everything and use infrared to kill the weeds?
No, I have not seen that. The my main one that I've seen that uses AI now is the apple picking.
Yes.
It's like a vacuum-like machine that grabs the apple, twists it, and pulls off the tree.
Yeah. Yes, I have seen that, and it like I identifies whether it's ripe or not. So,
Yeah.
I'm wondering how much of this is actually going to come true, to be honest with you, because
Uh,
I see some of it, like when they kind of theorize and everything. As an engineer, I'm looking at architecture and engineering, and I'm almost wiped out. Management, is they're talking about like a 90% business and finance, computer and math. They're looking at it almost completely gone too, which
yeah, I
I
got to
kind of
share with you the
wonder.
management thing. Though I think that's an extremely vague category.
Mm,
I don't see how AI in its current state or even in the future is going to be able to motivate human beings.
yeah, I
Uh,
don't. Yeah,
uh,
I'm kind of not so worried about that one, to be honest with you. Um, Engineering, that's probably has one of the biggest, I would say, anti-trends to what they're theorizing, to be honest with you,
mhm.
because they predict a big one and they have like very little observed coverage. So,
So
um,
I
yeah,
felt the same way about healthcare practitioners. It has a very high
yeah, that's
theoretical,
another
and
one.
right now it's almost nominal. And I'm going, well, that seems like practitioner would be a good use of AI to assist practitioners in making accurate
Hmm.
diagnoses.
Yeah,
So I'm a little surprised that's not higher in its current state.
yeah, I know, and you gotta remember this is all theorized right now, and I'm wondering how much of this observed AI coverage that people are trying to do or trying to overreach the capabilities of AI.
Hmm.
Is kind of what I'm wondering, and it's gonna be interesting to see where it goes and all that. And I'm looking at the arts and media. They're looking at that as like probably like 80%. I think with media, AI slop has become a big
Yeah.
thing, especially on social media,
Hmm.
and it's become actually pretty lame, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
And I think people are sick of it. I really do.
I'm kind of getting tired of it because
Yep.
I see like one story after another, and literally I'm copying and pasting stories. I'm like, is this true, Gemini? And they're
Yeah.
like, nope, just more Facebook rage bait. I'm like, go
I
figure.
I got to admit, I loved the Sasquatch videos when those first came
Hmm.
out,
Yeah.
and they've slowed way down.
Hmm.
And just the other day, there was a woman that said she bred nice great white sharks. So they come up behind her shoulder in the water and she pets them. And I'm going, oh my gosh, like what? I miss Sasquatch
Yeah, th this is becoming kind of ridiculous.
a little bit.
Really. Yeah, I
But
think, anyways. But that is the world, according to AI predictions. What's our next segment, Adam?
segment number three, this one you may not have heard of because it's not as big in the news, but YouTube is bringing what was labeled a controversial AI to the TVs. So
Hmm.
YouTube is currently testing, so I don't know where the market's testing this at, a conversational AI feature for televisions. That's right, smart TVs that lets viewers ask questions about videos they are watching. So a user could say things like, hey, summarize this video for me, or explain this concept to me. And what ingredients were mentioned in that video? So
Uh-huh.
I thought about this, like, why is that controversial? And then it hit
Hmm.
me, the surveillance piece.
Yeah, I mean, the surveillance, yeah, I don't know how much this adds to surveillance, to be honest with you, because they're already surveilling what you're watching on YouTube.
Right.
They're already surveilling your Google searches and everything.
Hmm.
Surprise! So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, if you start asking more questions, what are you interacting with more of? Maybe that could be a kind of a little more fine-tuning of the surveillance and
Yep,
everything. Um, but it's yeah, kind of an interesting thing here, and
it is.
AI assistants, not just phones and computers, they're coming to your TV now.
Yep. So I actually asked a little bit of a follow-up with an AI device because I thought instantly it was the surveillance is what made it controversial. There were
Hmm.
some other key points that were brought up, and it made me think a little more. The expanded behavioral data collection, like keeping data
Hmm.
upon questions that the viewers are asking. What are their interests? Like, how can they infer interest based on how they're communicating?
Hmm.
Learning habits and comprehension gaps. It's a much deeper learning profile of a specific person. And
Yeah.
that led to going down the rabbit hole of algorithmic influence. Like if AI begins summarizing or explaining videos, and they need to make sure they're doing it to the correct way, we don't want that
Hmm.
to become the interpreter of the content. We want to be the interpreter of the content as the human watching it.
Yeah, like how much algorithm is too much, I think, is kind of like what it's
I,
starting to come up on. I
I
mean,
feel
you're
like algorithms are getting worse in social media. Like they were really good about a year and a half ago, and now they're
yeah.
they're just not as good.
Well, there's a term like we like to use over engineering in my field right here. And are you just adding too many features? And that's kind of like what I started questioning my car now. I have a car that just has all these tech features and I'm like, why do I need that? Perfect example, the intermediate wiper blades that you have right there. You can either have them on low or you can have them high intermission, low intermission, depending on how hard it's raining. There's now a sensor for um how wet your windshield is, which kind of determines its intermediate windshield wiping. And I'm kind of getting
Uh,
off topic here,
no, you're not,
but
because I hate that. I
yeah,
I want to determine what my comfort level is with my windshield wipers.
yeah,
I don't want AI doing that for me. I don't want a
yeah.
tech feature doing that for me. I want to determine it as the human being.
Yeah, and that's just what I wonder,
Yeah.
kind of my point of bringing that up is, you know, that's just too much engineering right there. I don't need that. If I need a slow intermission, I can toggle that myself. I can make that determination. This isn't difficult. If I want to summarize a video, I just gotta watch the video and say, okay, what do I think of this? And it's now I'm like, okay, you tell me what I'm supposed to think
Hmm.
and everything. And now we're succumbing to this algorithm a lot
Yeah.
too much and ultimately, my point is, uh, do we need this? Like, is this really needed? I don't really think we need this, to be
I
honest with you.
I don't see it. I don't see it. I see more of maybe a could you recap the episode or pause the episode and say, could you recap it for me? Who's this character? Maybe something like that. But
Maybe, but that just
maybe,
kind of takes away
uh,
the
yeah.
it takes away the mystique of a TV show.
Eh, There's something to be said about the skill of focus.
Hmm.
And I don't want to get too philosophical, but I did just recently see this that about pre-COVID, the
Hmm.
average human's attention span for deep focus was about 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Mm.
Since that time, with algorithms, screens, quicks, reels, all that
Hmm.
stuff, we're down to 47 seconds.
Yeah, that's
And there
kind
was
of
something
creepy.
to be said about being bored that actually helps your brain learn to focus.
Hmm.
And how many times have we watched a video and we're bored watching it, but we still watch it, and all of a sudden it triggers something in us that makes us think of something we wouldn't have thought of?
Yeah, I mean,
It
it's
does.
like kind of like the boring parts of a movie,
Yeah,
or a
sometimes
TV
those
show.
this,
Like you need to just slow down a little bit and
yeah.
like contemplate and
So
everything.
now I'm gonna go on a movie spiel, but Rocky
Hmm.
Four, great soundtrack, nonstop action. When I
Yeah.
was in high school, even college, the scene with his wife where he's on the steps, I fast forwarded it. I'm like, come on, there's no music here. Okay, he's getting into a fight with his wife, and then she's going to eventually join him in Russia so we could train. When I was an adult, I'm like, I should actually listen to this.
Hmm.
It's actually one of the best speeches in all the Rocky movies. And I missed out on it. I missed out on it because I was always in a hurry to get to the fast stuff, the entertaining stuff. And
Hmm.
that speech is really good about going the distance. It wasn't going the distance with Creed. It was about how he has to be willing to die in order to beat me. I don't think he's willing to do that.
Yeah.
Like, and while that's not exactly AI, it kind of is because AI is accidentally preventing us from having those moments of clarity and things that come up
Hmm.
when we're not expecting it. If it's constant entertainment, constant algorithm this, algorithm that to get people more engaged in it, it's not going to work. It's going to
No,
hurt us.
it's like watching a constant action scene over and over
Yeah.
again. It's like action, action, action. I love it. I love it. I love it. But then it kind of loses its luster after a while. And when you actually try to um how should I say it? Like you have those down parts or those boring parts or what have you, and it kind of like resets your brain. Then when the action starts to hit, it means something to you,
Hmm.
and then that's like a good thing right there. And another movie I can kind of this is maybe a little bit off topic, uh, Thor Ragnarok and then Thor Love and Thunder. I don't know if you've seen those two, but
No.
Yeah. So Thor Ragnarok introduced a lot of like humorous breaks within the dialogue and everything, and it worked really well. But then Thor Love and Thunder, literally every single line was a joke. Every single solitary line.
Oh.
And it got old very, very quickly. And this is kind of goes back to that, stimulation part. And, how does this relate to, YouTube coming in and, adding these little like questions that you can ask it? It takes away your thought process, to be honest with you.
I think it's going to. And
Yeah.
then what happens if the YouTube TV works fine and you set the settings you want it to tell you the summary before you even watch it? It's
Hmm.
going back to that bias content. Watch the stuff, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no,
So,
I think it kind of takes away the excitement out of everything. So,
yeah.
yeah, it's kind of a little bit overstimulating. But either way, I think we can get to our last topic here.
Yeah, I'm excited
Um,
for this one. I feel like it's
right
long
now.
overdue, Brian.
Yeah, it's I have thoughts too, but it's still kind of interesting. The University of North Texas is launching a bachelor's degree in artificial intelligence to meet growing workforce demand.
Yep.
So,
Program is going to focus on building AI systems, deploying AI software, and understanding ethical implications.
hmm
It's about darn time
yeah.
somebody does this. Kudos to the University of North Texas. Uh,
hmm
Fun fact, since we're talking about movies, the great movie, early 90s football movie, Necessary Roughness, was filmed at North Texas University.
hmm
Have you seen it, Brian?
Nope. No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, Kathy
I'm
Ireland
sorry.
plays the kicker,
I'm
and
sorry.
she is just a beautiful woman. But that's besides the
Hmm
point. I digress now. But with that being said, yeah, 90s crush. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyways, was there, and kudos to North Texas for doing this because somebody's got to go through the gauntlet to be the leader and do this first. And I'm sure they're going to make a mistake or two along the way in terms of
Hmm
figuring out what's important versus not. But darn it, you guys did a good job. You got the conversation going. You're offering
hmm
something that is of need, which will help keep colleges relevant. Because, Brian, if we just take a look
hmm
at that chart we talked about 2 segments ago,
hmm
a lot of those industries that are not going to get touched by AI are not exactly college degrees. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it's clear. So colleges need to stay relevant. They're all hurting right now,
hmm
and I'm sure North Texas isn't the only one doing this, but it was the one that I found the news story on. So I said, kudos. We got to talk about this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it's a good idea. It seems a little broad to me. And kind of like a generic,
Ye-
sort of like I have a bachelor's in artificial intelligence. It's like, okay, and
yeah,
it's kind of it just seems like sort of like broad reaching sort of
it.
uh trying to encompass everything when AI really I'm always an advocate. You use AI for your specialty,
Mhm.
essentially. So that's my kind of only sort of gives me pause to this really.
Yeah.
And I just think there needs to be AI classes for all degrees, to be honest with you. They need to integrate AI education into multiple degrees and everything in some
Mhm.
fashion, I think.
I don't disagree with you, Brian. I actually know what little bit I know about academia. I think it's going to start as a bachelor's degree in artificial intelligence. Then it's
Hmm
going to move towards specialization in ethical compliance or specialization in being an AI generalist or specialization in this aspect of AI.
hmm
I think the university is going to create entire degrees around this thing. And that's kind of the key point that I'm interested in is that this is now going to be a thing.
hmm
My sons who are not in college yet are going to have the opportunity to hopefully study this at a reasonably affordable university.
Wink,
Hopefully.
wink.
Yeah, yeah, wink, wink. Keep telling the kids there's no need to look outside of the current state we live in ever.
Yeah. Well, that's on them. But Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is though, there's a lot of elements of AI. There's actually using AI tools to build an end product, and then there's actually programming software to whatchamacallit, run machine learning algorithms and everything.
Yeah,
And those require a lot of different skill sets. So there's like a front end and there's a back end, and then there's oversight to this.
yeah,
So if you're having one artificial intelligence degree, this is going to start to splinter, I think, into multiple degrees very quickly because there's so many aspects
I do.
of this, which, we have a podcast, we have so many episodes because there's so many ways to talk about this.
Correct. You're not wrong about this.
No.
For me, it was exciting. It was like when I first heard that energy engineering is an actual thing and it was coming to American universities. I was excited to hear that.
Hmm.
This was just as exciting. There are certifications that you can get. They're all over the place for artificial intelligence through universities. But it was nice to see dedicated studies to artificial intelligence. That's how it's going to
Hmm.
start. And I think it's going to turn into, like we said, you're going to get a specialization in AI management, AI implementation,
Yeah,
all the things that Brian and I have talked about.
I mean, and I'll be kind of frank. I think degrees have become over specialized in my opinion, because their companies are trying to use it as like pseudo job training. But that's kind of a whole nother
I,
podcast right there.
I actually do have a belief that college as we know it is not going to exist in 20 years.
Yeah, I know
Uh,
it's going to be very, very different. But if universities evolve properly, I think they can still stay relevant within society.
I agree. I think a
It's
lot are going to fail, but yes, yes, there will be some that stay relevant.
Yeah, like a lot, the for-profit ones I think are all but gone. I hope so.
There's
Anyways.
still a couple, but you know what they're doing, Brian? They're pivoting. Like
Hmm.
I can name one or two that I'm aware of that have done a good job of maintaining a student body and maintaining a relevant name in the system. And it's
Hmm.
because they do things like offer online courses in areas and certifications of need and of want, or excuse me, more in need instead of want.
Hmm.
So it's keeping them relevant. And I agree with you. This is going to be it's going to be something to watch, like everything else. I'm going to watch the court cases first,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
this is something, and it is exciting to know that this can be something that you can major in now if you have a passion for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, that was our final story. So, wrapping things up, closing thoughts. I think we're really starting to like all these stories right here that we kind of went over. We're really starting to come into, I should say, the next phase of what are we supposed to be doing with AI?
Yeah,
Where are the lines, and where are we supposed to go with this?
yeah,
Um, you know, everything with the first story about Anthropic's lawsuit, now lines are being drawn. And it's going to be interesting to see, where those lines continue to be drawn. The usage and theoretical usage right now, is starting to come into more of a focus right now
hmm
as to what we think AI can do versus what AI is actually doing. A lot of times two different things. Then, YouTube, I think unnecessary features. I think we both kind of,
yeah,
went over that. This just seems unnecessary to me. And then universities, finally, understanding that they need to really get into this stuff.
yeah. I think for me, the takeaway was all of tonight's episode. There was a little bit of underlying theme. We're beginning the discussion on human behavior being impacted by AI.
Yeah, definitely. And
We're seeing it now. There's evidence of it. We're talking geopolitical. We're talking court system. We are talking personalized television. We are
hmm
talking college majors. We are talking impact on jobs. We
oh yeah.
are talking about the impact AI is now having on human behavior. When we started this podcast last May, I don't think we were at the point where we'd be talking about that. And now here we are in 2026, not even a year later, talking about that.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's here and now the real deal is starting to come up with AI. But either way, I think that about wraps it up for the evening. I'd like to give everybody a big thank you for taking your time out of your day to listen to us. My name is Brian,
And I'm Adam.
and you have been listening to Layman's AI, and we will see you next time.